welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher. So let's jump right into it. We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles. How you doing on Wednesday night, the night before Turkey night, Thanksgiving? So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there in the community. Like I said, this is an impromptu live stream. I figured I had nothing going on tonight. I felt like talking about everything comics related, and actually have a special guest tonight that's going to be joining me in just a few minutes. He's backstage. But before I bring him on, I wanted to say hello to everyone out there in the community. Like I said, happy Thanksgiving. Tomorrow's the day. It's been a busy week, a busy month for me. I've been crazy busy with work stuff, and that's not going to end anytime soon. But I wanted to jump on and just shoot the shit, whoever's out there. Like normally when we do live streams, we talk about anything comics related. If you guys have questions on books, if you have questions on grades, on prices, stuff like that, what my opinions are. And I'm going to bring in a guest, like I said, who's got some crazy books. He's got better books than me, believe it or not. So, and he's got some big ones. He's got some small ones. He's been in the hobby probably longer than me. And I knew when I got back into the hobby around 2017, 2018, I recognized his name right from back then. So he's got a lot of stuff, and we're going to welcome him to the YouTube channel today. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. He does not have a YouTube channel, but he's on Instagram. And I know if you've ever entered a live sale, you probably have heard his name before, probably follow him on Instagram. So we'll get to him in just a minute, but I want to say hello to the few members who are in the chat as of right now. And I understand it's the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, so we're not going to get a ton of people in there, but trickle in as you are. You know, if you got nothing going on tonight, many of you are probably prepping for tomorrow, but let me say hello to Kenny, the comic collector. How are you, Doug? Thank you. What's up, peeps? Happy Thanksgiving. And my boy, Danny, how are you, brother? Happy Thanksgiving, buddy. Doing bread orders while I tune in. There you go. Oh, always working, always working. So I'll start off by saying this. There is no question that we're not going to answer tonight between the two of us, whether you have a question for me or a question for my guest. He has a lot of information out there for you guys that he can help you with anything, just like hopefully I can. And we're just going to bring him in a minute. I'll say hello to my buddy Metal Bum. How are you? But the last thing I want to say before I bring him on is I have the StreamYard link. If anybody else wants to join us tonight and jump on to talk about anything comics related. And when I talk about that, like I said before, books, prices, opinions, we could talk about the MCU as well. We could talk about the DCU, our opinions on that. I don't care what we do. We got nothing going on. So that's why I figured let's jump on. So without further ado, I'm bringing my guest. It is a member of Instagram, like I said, someone who I have great respect for in the community. It is Yakuza Doc. His name is Eric. How you doing, bud? Thanks for joining me today.
I'm doing well. Thank you. Your words are too kind, but I appreciate them. And whoever's watching, thank you for spending a few minutes before Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're taking a break from either in-laws or family and the pressure, and just give yourself a little peaceful comic zen for a little bit.
Yeah. Even though the Zen, I don't know if Zen is the right word now because of all the stuff in the, you know, the price, all the prices that have come down over the past couple of years. And I'm going to ask you the first question because I know you have gone along the similar path as me, whereas you picked up some, you know, early Silver Age keys like I did, and then you traded some away or sold some and got yourself a nice Batman one. So why don't we start with that story, if you don't mind sharing it with us, how you went about that deal? Because I know I've shared my experience on the channel as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, you know, people have asked, you know, always ask, well, what's the Grail books you want? What's the thing that you're looking for? And to be quite honest, my Grail book was Captain America 1. There are a lot of different reasons. And I thought, how do I get what I want, right? And I said, okay, you know, we all know that, you know, those books that are unrestored they're pushing 7 figures. That's not achievable. But when you start realizing, wait a minute, I'm sitting on all kinds of $10, $50, $100 books, and then some keys, maybe $1,000 book, you know, is it better to have one of something really great or a bunch of stuff that's, pretty good. And so after, kind of years, I was like, I got so much stuff that's coming out of my ears, but my wife's kind of on my back, blah, 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 blah. Nowhere else to put it. I mean, I get everything into my 13 by 13 office. I said, let me start selling these. I said, these books that are these mega golden grails that I never ever thought I would own became, all of a sudden, they became possible to achieve. And I saw that you did this. You know what? I said, this is kind of what I want to try to do. So I sacrificed a lot of the books that I had got, the Silver Age keys, and anything else I could sell if I wasn't married to it, and all of a sudden it starts adding up. And next thing you know, opportunity knocks, and someone might be posting a 4.0 purple label that presents really good. And ultimately, I just want that book, and I do think that there is a market for restored books for specifically Golden Age, Mega Grails, and perhaps AF-15. And because there's just so few in number, we're talking about 200 or less probably for all those books. When you get to the Silver Age Grails, I mean, now we're talking census numbers of 2,000 to 10,000 or what have you. So I started thinking, well, if I want to get that book, I can always get it again, sacrifice now and strike while the iron's hot if there's an opportunity. So that's what I did. And I saw your thing, and when you did it, I think I texted you and said, congratulations, that's awesome. Because I know the buyer, and I was thinking about, man, this should be the one I should try, but it's too late. And I said, you know what? So that was my goal. So I was able to convert probably half of my slabs, and some raw stuff, and collect cash over a year. I collect other things like posters and stuff that I sold. I sold watches, whatever I could sell and raise money. Like I said, if it wasn't something my wife was living in, or my kids, it was for sale. And so I was able to get some Golden Age grails for me that now I have on the wall behind me.
It's a tough decision too. I mean, when I went through it, it was like, you know what? I spent all these years getting these books and doing these things. Do I want to give up what I've amassed over that time? And it really comes down to, what would you rather have? And I pose this to a lot of the collectors out there that, if you're attached to every book that you have, you're probably never going to make that leap into buying something that's really big. But I thought about this, and this is what I do basically on the channel. When I do like the hot 10 breakdown and stuff like that, I always tell people, you're going to spend all this money on this certain book, but if you just, maybe you didn't buy these 9 books that are on this list, and you don't do that for a year, and then all of a sudden you don't realize how much money that is that you spent over time that you could have consolidated into one of these amazing things that you really want.
Right. You want to be in. The other thing is, you get involved in the habit of collecting. I mean, going through the motion, and you're always getting stuff. Sometimes overriding your executive function of your brain, because you want to get stuff because, I like that, I like that, and then maybe at some point you're sitting on a stack of boxes that came in the mail over the last couple of weeks, and stuff starting to pile up. And you're like, man, would I rather have? I only have so much room on my wall, and every inch of my wall in my office is covered with posters or prints or comics. And ultimately, it came down to, what if I could have 10? What would those 10 be? Would I be willing to trade 200 for 10? The answer became yes. And so sometimes I buy books to have because I know I'm going to sell them down the road, even at a loss. I don't care, but just to have something for sale when I do a sale, like about every 3 months. But the idea was, I want to get these books that are really, number one, from a practical standpoint, not going to fluctuate with market rates, because ultimately, if I have to sell them for a reason, God forbid, I need it for a surgery, or maybe I want to sell it to fund a college, whatever. Those aren't going to have as much competition, and they're going to have more stability. But number two, they're just cooler to look at, there are random books I just love. I love the cover, I love the character, and I keep those because they're emotional. And these are emotional because as a kid, I would. I don't know how old you are. I'm 55.
I'm 46.
Yeah, so I got a lot of these treasury books, and it was like the Superman treasury, the Batman treasury, and they always had the first issue, and all these issues. They were mostly Golden Age, and they would have some special ones from the Silver and Bronze Age in there. And I read the hell out of these. And I remember as a kid, I used to get the Overstreet Guide. And I read the Overstreet Guide like it was a book. So I knew which comics were, this is the most expensive comics, Marvel Comics #1. I remember $300,000, whatever, one year. That's what a sale was. So I read I read the Overstreet Guide like it was a book. So that was, that's kind of got the bug. And I said, let me see. And look, all of a sudden you realize you're sitting on, I can get one of these books, and you're shocked because you just start doing the numbers.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think, at least for me, the way I think is, I think you have to go through the process. You have to go and collect for your nominal amount of time. And then I think people start thinking about it. At least that was my experience. I wanted to collect the Silver Age grails because that's what I grew up on. And then, but once you get to a certain point, you're like, well, I'm done with that. What else is achievable? And then you start realizing, wait a minute, if I kind of give these up, maybe I can go out and get something that's almost non-existent out there. Like, I know you have got yourself a Batman one. I know you've showed it on Instagram. Roughly, off the top of my head, CGC has roughly 300 copies graded of a Batman one as compared to like an AF-15, which everybody knows that's my book. I love it. It was like 3,800.
I've had multiple of those. But ultimately I sacrificed it, #1, because the market was twice what I got into it for. And so I knew, give me 1 second, I got to take my dressing out of the oven. But
yeah, take your time.
That's Thanksgiving. It's right over here. Hold on 1 second.
He's ready for Thanksgiving. That's all we can ask. So I want to catch up everyone here in the chat. So let me say hello to, I said hello to Metal Bum. We'll get to your question eventually, bud. Tiker, how you doing, bud? He says, the hard part with letting go of books is taking a loss on them. If you bought prior to 2019, then you're good. But anything after, more likely not a loss will be realized. So Aaron Berger, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Kenneth Bird, happy Thanksgiving to you. So I'm going to read you this comment because it does pertain, because this is something I was going to mention after you're done. It says, the hard part with letting go of books is taking a loss on them. If you bought prior to 2019, then you're good. But anything after, more likely than not, a loss will be realized. So let me address this, and then I'll let Eric address this. There's no great time to sell a book. I think, when 2020, 2021 hit, where things were just screaming higher, like AF-15 doubled in price literally overnight.
Literally.
If you had owned that book already and you had been through this before, I would say you probably would have known at that point to, hey, sell that book if you're not married to it. But if you're first time going through this, it's a very emotional process. So it is hard to let go. It really depends how much you're underwater and what you're willing to sacrifice. If you're underwater a ton, like when I say a ton, I mean a lot of money, it's kind of hard. Maybe you might have to just sit on those books. But hey, if you can trade a bunch of things for something you really want and you don't have to take any money out of your pocket, then is it worth it? I'm going to say yes, but it's to each his own. So I'll let you answer that question now.
So so there's some books that I'm in on that like a bad sale. I just can't take the loss. Like, let's say, for instance, I bought a Daredevil 1 for $3,500, for example. And then the last sale, when I was going to sell it, the last sale was, a week before I planned on selling it, was $23. I don't want to lose $1,500 on that book. It's a great book. I think that, again, if you watch, it's like watching the stock market. There's down years and there's crazy runs, but over time, the slope works out to about a 7% increase, averaged out over time. And comics kind of follow. If you look at the Go Collect data, comics the good ones tend to do that. And there's spikes. You'll notice if you look at the Silver Age books, the dip was hard, but the dip came down right above the line where it was, and so that's where it would have been on the curve had it not been for that, like a bull run. So if I bought a Silver Age book for $500 or $100 and I take a 20% loss on it, I'm okay with that. If I'm getting something else, if it's not a book that I want to keep, then there's no point having it, because if I sold to a dealer, the dealer is going to take 30% off the top, and at best case scenario, maybe 40% even, unless it's a mega key. So it's all kind of an equation I do. And there are books like, for instance, this is a book I really like, right? And I just think it's a super. Let me find it. It's a super cover. And it says Mr. Mystery #6. And so you got a woman in bondage, you got skeleton ghouls, you got torture, right? It's a really cool book. Not an easy to find book, very kind of low census. And I put it up for sale because I was trying to get the money to buy the Batman. But there was a random sale, and so everyone wants to focus on that sale and then stick you for that when they're buying your book. But it may not have sold for 2 years before that. You just don't see it. So I just said, nah, I'd rather keep the book because I don't, there's not that many. You'll wait for another sale, and then, but then you just hold on to it. If it's, if it's a book where there's 50,000, like let's say it's a Hulk 181, well, or even better, here's a good example: the Ultimate Fallout 4. You can see that run went from I bought that book at 600, at 800, at 900, at 1300, at 2800, and now it's back down to 1300. So it's hard to time it. If you want one, I wanted one for my collection. I have a couple, and I tried to sell them. And the price has just come down. I was like, well, I'll just hold on to these because I don't want to take a loss necessarily on that book. But if there are other Silver Age books and it's closed, it's like 20%, and I'm trying to get something else, yes, I mean that's just the way it goes. Everyone can't make money on every transaction. I don't take offense if I lose money. If someone gives me a low offer, I don't take it personally and get all bent out of shape and blame it. No, I mean, it is what it is. Books that I really want. If you ever watch a live sale, I mean, I don't say I give stuff away, but I realize the economics of having stuff sitting around is not making me the cash I need to get the book that I want.
Yeah.
So I let go of it. I'll make, it tends to balance out. I'm not a dealer. I'm not trying to make a living at it. So it'll balance out on another sale.
So if you guys aren't on Instagram, get on Instagram, because I still think to this day the best deals you could buy and sell on comics are on Instagram. So if you're not on
I 100%
Instagram,
agree. Yeah.
make sure you're following Eric Yakuza Doc, and you guys know who I am, Mighty Comics _ collectibles. I can tell you the best deals that I've gotten recently and when I say recently, I'm talking about over the past 3 years, have all been on Instagram. So eBay, every now and then I'll buy something, but for the most part, Instagram is where deals can be had because, you're buying from other community members. And if you just listen to what Eric said, like sometimes they'll let stuff go for a price because they need to sell something, whether they're a dealer or they're the collector and maybe they wanted to move on to something else. So, they're willing to budge more than anyone.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And so I've had dealers buy from me because they get a good deal and they're going to price it up. I don't mind. I have no problem with that. And they'll remember you. So when you give them, an offer, sometimes they'll remember that you did right by them and they'll do right by you. I rarely ever buy anything on eBay. The fees are they're kind of expensive. I've had some bad shipping. At conventions, I will buy books from dealers, number one, that I know, or number two, that will stand by their raw books. If someone, you can't spend hours and hours at one person's shop looking through 5 raw books to look for restoration and messed up. I just want to know, hey, if this comes back restored, if I grade it, will you take it back or will you work with me? If they say buyer beware, I don't have anything to do with them because it's not worth it. I know if I buy on Instagram sales from different vendors, if there's any problem, they take it back. They don't have any. I've had books that I've sold to people. I said, if there's any problem, send it. Either I'll take it back and pay you. I'll pay for shipping, or I'll pay the difference, or we'll work something out. It's not worth the aggravation of someone who can't stand by their stuff.
There you go. So my good buddy Danny is actually he's having the same thing going through his head now. He says, "What a great guest! I'm on the spot right now." He's like, he can give up 10 to 11 top ASM keys for an AF-15. I just worry about being able to replace them and how long it will take. But what would you rather have? That's what it's going to come down to. And I think all the early ASM books you're talking about, they can be replaced. And you don't always have to have, at least that's how I collect, is where I don't have to have every ASM key. And I have them all. I don't have them at all crazy grades. I like a lot of mines are like between, 1.5 and like a 3.5. I don't need to have higher grades. So if you could sacrifice grade and get yourself some extra cash, I think that's the better bet, just to own an AF-15. I know there's 3,800 of them available, but I know you're a super Spider-Man fan. You're probably the biggest Spider-Man fan that I know outside of myself. So I say it's worth it. What do you say, Eric?
I say consider this. If you have the AF-15 is the only Silver Age key that I have not yet gotten back, and I'm very fortunate in that the prices are kind of down to where they were when I first got my ASM. I actually got it from Bam Pow Comics. It's AM-15. It was a 2.5. I think I ended up paying. They did me a payment plan. By the way, payment plans are great. So when people offer them, that's a way that it can help you get your book and at a time that's not stresses you out. Never don't pay your rent money. Don't pay. That's not what it's about, because you may have to sell it and they're not as liquid as you think you are when when you're stressed. But um, I think I got into it for 21 grand. It was a 2.5, and I think a month later they were, 2 months later they were $45,000. To get my AF-15, I sold my Lincoln convertible. I had a '66 Lincoln, and a month after I sold the convertible, I bought the car. The Lincoln engine blew up, and I would have been out 17 grand. I ended up selling the AF-15 for 37,000 because it started to dip a little bit, and that was my time to get out of it and get into that golden age book that I wanted. But they'll also got to consider this when you talk about grade. If you're in a pinch, there are more buyers for the 2.0 than there are for the 8.0. It's just the economics. So I don't have to have the biggest grade of anything, and sometimes a lot of people do this. Once I get that in a grade, okay, if another one comes along or the prices come down and I can sell the lower grade, then kick another couple $100 and get the higher grade, I will do that, and I'll start bumping up those keys. That's kind of how I do it. So I just want a nice looking book. I want to have the book and let it go from there.
I agree with you. I'm gonna put Kenny on. He's got a statement. I often hear people cite if a seller has low sales count, be very leery and or avoid buying from them. Every seller starts at 0 sales. What advice would you give to someone just starting to sell comics? I'll let you handle that one first.
Number one, decide what your ethics are going to be. All right. So you have to decide that you're either going to stand by your books or you're not. And by that means you got to be willing to take it back and pay the person their money back for whatever reason. And just that's how you build a reputation, and you can ruin it in one swoop. Number two, go to the platform where you can get seen. And there are different sites where people do live sales. Like I've done live sales, but they're like Elite will do sales with multiple sellers at one time. Get in on one of those if you're going to start selling. Sell good books and be ready to make deals and sell books. Don't be married to them, and follow through on everything and be a good seller. And then over time, you will gain enough reputation and followers that you could start doing it on your own if you want to or what have you. That's probably the best advice that I would give people.
So I'll jump in here and say as well, it really depends on where you're selling. If you're going to eBay, stuff like that, it's going to take a few sales for you to kind of get your, your selling grooves. People need to trust you, but all it takes is a few. If you're going to sell anywhere, no matter where it is, whether if they're graded books, you're pretty much in the clear. Like you don't have to worry about, restoration, stuff like that. You don't have to worry about grading books as already graded. But if you're going to sell raw books, you have to be able to grade your books. That's the one thing I'm going to say, because they're becoming more knowledgeable. Collectors are very knowledgeable nowadays, where they can tell if you're trying to get over on them. So Eric just talked about, what your standards are going to be as a seller. Make sure that you know how to grade your raw books if you're going to sell raw books, because that's a big thing. I had a couple people like, and I'm not a dealer. I don't really sell books. I'm a collector, and sometimes I want to sell books, but I remember way back when I sold somebody a first appearance of Brother Voodoo, and the guy had said to me after he bought the book that, I told him my grade was like a 7.0, and he's like, listen, months later he came back, listen, I got the book, I'm looking at it, I wanted to send it into CGC, and he's like, the top looks like it's possibly have been trimmed. I said, do me a favor, send me pictures of the book, let me take a look at it. So I got he sent me the pictures. I'm like, I could see where you're going, why you might think that. I said, do me a favor, measure the book from top to bottom, from side to side, gave me the measurements, and went online, looked it up. It was pretty much spot on. I said, listen, send it into CGC. If it comes back as it's trimmed, I'll refund you the money, no issue. Because I believe that it wasn't. It was just the way the book was cut, because it was kind of sloped at the top, but it was still, proportionate to where it should be, being cut. So sure enough, got the book back maybe like a month and a half later, or whatever it was. He said, came back as 7.0 blue label, right on the money. So to me, being, upfront and honest and standing by what you're selling is there's no better way than being able to have someone else trust you than doing something like that.
Yeah, you might miss a page and you didn't see it, and they try to get it.
Yeah.
Like if someone took a book that I sold them and they got it graded.
Uh-oh. We lost you? All right, we might have lost Eric for a second. Hopefully he comes back, but if he comes back, I'll add him back to the screen. But in the meantime, back to what we were talking about. Yeah, just being transparent and doing that is the best thing to get your reputation going as a seller, in my opinion. So while Eric's is working out his issues on his end with getting the camera back, I don't know if his phone just died or maybe he's getting a phone call. That's possible.
Yeah.
There it is. You're back. What happened?
I got a phone call.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
No big deal. No big deal.
But
again, I'll let you finish up.
If it comes back, it came back, you know, there was missing a page where it said, look, I paid for the money they spent to grade it, and I refunded them, and they kept the book. Because, you know, it's just the right thing to do. I've had other dealers do it with me, and those are the people that I deal with in the future. So that's just how it works.
All right, so I'm gonna address Metal Bum's question because he asked this first, but I've been waiting to get through other things before we got to it. He said, any Bronze Age you're targeting, guys? I've been picking up some giant size X-Men because the prices have been so low lately. They are at 2019 price. Same with Marvel Spotlight 5, Ghost Rider, FA Punisher down. I don't know what FA means. Maybe you do.
First appearance.
Oh, okay. First appearance Punisher down. I got you. Okay. So again, I'll let you start with this one. Is there anything you're targeting?
Of the Bronze Age books, I've probably had them all and don't have them, and get them again and don't have them. I would like to get, because the prices are kind of fluctuating. I personally think that the ASM 129, I said before, is equally as important of a book as Hulk 181. The Punisher is a character that has a lot of gravity. I'm gonna text this person back here real quick, and it's someone, you know, wanting to get something looked at, but it's as equally as important, I think. You know, Wolverine's probably a little bigger, but the Punisher's huge. Punisher has his own series. I mean, he's been on movies, etc. And so I always have one, and I just keep on. You know, when I have an opportunity, I bump it up a half a grade, and I'll do that. Some of the Bronze Age ones that I had that are keys don't really resonate with me, so I don't want to get into those before I get something else. And I will try to get the highest grade that I can. I've had the Hulk 181 multiple times over, you know, from a 3.5 to a 7, and I've always sold them. And because I know they're always available if I want to get one when it's time to get one, and I will again. But you know, for me, there's besides that and the ASM 129, there are a couple other, you know, I guess the House of Mysteries that considered Copper Age, I would guess. I like that, but it just has to really kind of has to resonate with you, not just to have. That's kind of a difference in how I've been collecting in the last couple of years.
And that's, I'm going to say the same thing because you guys know, if you watch my channel religiously, I think there's maybe about 5 Bronze Age keys that I really want to own. And we can go a little bit further and talk about, you know, a couple more after the fact. And I always say it's Giant Size X-Men 1, Hulk 181, ASM 129, Marvel Spotlight 5, Hulk 180. And I'm going to add, you know, Werewolf by Night 32 and Tomb of Dracula 10. So that's 7 books that I think are worth owning from the Bronze Age. And guess how many I own of those right now?
2. The ASM
1.
probably.
The ASM 129. That's the only one I own right now. If you guys go look,
there's 2 right now. I've had all of them, but I think all I have is 2. I have the Giant Size X-Men and the ASM.
There's 18,000 Hulk 181s plus. That's just graded. Now, think about how many raws are out there. It's crazy. So, yes, I like Wolverine. Don't get me wrong. I'm a bigger Punisher fan. That's why I own that book. I'm doing my ASM run. That's why I own that book still. But if you add up all those books I just talked about and you get them in decent grades, 7 books, you're close to $10,000 if you own all those books. Close, depending on the grade. So with that said, do I want to take 10,000 and putting them in books where I know there's 15 to 20,000 minimum copies out there? Or do I want to take that book and buy an AF-15? I know it's $10,000 and maybe you're not finding an AF-15, but I just saw one on Elite Comics 11 that sold. They were asking 13 and change for a 0.5. Part of the back cover was missing, but the fucking front of the book was awesome. It was a blue label. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I would rather have that book.
That's true. And the thing is, if you're just patient with those Bronze Age ones, you will hit a random auction where not everyone's buying it, and some will sneak in there and you get a deal. You know, it's a patience kind of waiting game. That sometimes you can't necessarily afford to be patient on a book when there's 60 on the census. You take what you get, and you get it right then and there, and you deal with it later. But like you said, like I currently have the ASM, I have the GSX1. Every one of those other ones I've had and sold. And if I were to get one back, I think the first one I'd want to be honest with you is I'd like to get the Werewolf by Night, because I really enjoyed that. Mike Grell was doing some Werewolf by Night, and I enjoyed the series. I thought it was very interesting, and I went and bought the omnibus, so I read them all again. It kind of piqued my interest back in the book. So I'd probably get that one because the price is probably a third of what it used to be, and you can get a 9.0 for what you could have got a 6 or a 5. And now you're sitting on a really good quality grade book.
So now you mentioned this because I'll bring it up, but Diamond Comic Club, if you're not following them on Instagram, they had a couple for sale recently, and they have a 9.0 with the Moon Knight label. I made the guy an offer because the book has come down it's almost like 75% from the highs. It's some ridiculous percentage, but the guy didn't take my offer, but I was willing to pay what I was willing to pay, but he didn't want to come down off his price. But regardless, I agree with you on that book. It has come down way too far, and the cover is just outstanding on that book.
That's a great cover, yeah. I personally think, I'm not going to get wade into this territory. I think the Hulk 181, it is the Wolverine looks kind of goofy in it. I know how important it is, et cetera, et cetera. The Punisher, as a kid, to get into my story a little bit. So my parents were divorced, and I was living with my mom and my brother and sister, and this is in the 70s, and 755. We had a 7-Eleven, but it was a local kind of a little neighborhood food store called Mr. M. And they had a comic rack. I would go buy, I'd find bottles, I'd turn them in for cash, and I'd buy boatloads of comics. So I remember first getting comics probably when they were 20 cents. And then my mom got me subscriptions so I would get in the mail probably 8 different comic books a month for the monthly books, and it was Spider-Man. I remember Peter Parker, fantastic. I got boatloads of subscriptions. I get that little, and people don't have this kind of this experience anymore. But I would have the little, almost like a paper, the brown paper, butcher paper sleeve that it was in, and it'd come in, and the mailman would kind of curl up, stick it in our mailbox or whatever. And I was into Spider-Man. And so when I was reading Spider-Man into those, we talked about it like the 90s to 100, and then it started. I remember getting Punisher. I was like, because the character Jigsaw was in that book, I believe, and his face was all jacked up from getting put through a plate glass window. I remember him telling him, and I thought, that's an ugly ass dude. It kind of resonates with me. I love that book. I love that character. I'm into Wolverine more because of Hugh Jackman, because I'm a Hugh Jackman so dreamy. But the Punisher character was awesome,
I agree. I know everybody's infatuation with Wolverine. I get it. And I get that's why people want to own the book. And I'm not saying you shouldn't own the book, but what he's saying and what I agree with is that when you have other opportunities that are sometimes harder to get, maybe you go with those opportunities first. You can always come back and get that book at any time because there are a lot of copies out there. I do want to open it up to anybody out there who has more questions. Throw them in the chat. We're going to answer everything that you guys have to throw at us. Like I said, it's a Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. We don't have too many people on here, but we'll do our best.
Can I show a book here?
Yeah, absolutely. Show a couple of books because I know you have an excellent collection.
So this is a book that I bought recently, again, from an Instagram sale. I think it was priced, fair, on the high end of fair, but the opportunity, number one, I hadn't had the opportunity. Number two, they allowed me 3 or 4 months to pay for it, which gives me time to hustle. Number three, I have daughters. I don't have sons. I have daughters. And so Wonder Woman is a character for me, kind of, first female superhero, really. We're talking about the 40s, almost on equal footing with with the Thor and the Superman. Um, I had an All-Star 8 once. It was a 1.8 and brittle pages. I sold that to get one of my other ones. I never. I would like to get that back, but I never loved the cover as a Wonder Woman person. So I got this. All right. So this is Wonder Woman #1, which I think is a really cool cover. And I also have. Let me pull this out. Let's see. Oh, she's up there. So I have Sensation #1 as well. I like those books from an aesthetic reason greater than Sensation. I had to send back to CGC because I had a cracked slab. The seller sold it to me, packed it like ass, and I sent it. So I had to get it the slab cracked in the mail. So I sent it back to get slab. But those have covers that are so much cooler in terms of being a Wonder Woman book. And it's those things like when you have a first appearance, like the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Love the character. That cover for the first Doctor Strange is awful. There's no Doctor Strange there. It's like, I got the book, but it's like that first Doctor Strange, like 169 and Strange Tales, or that Brunner cover from the 70s. Those are much cooler covers.
Somebody asked me recently, I did a Q&A video, and they asked me, what's one book that I'm glad I never bought? It was that book, Doctor Strange 110, because it went up a little bit during COVID, but came right back down because of that ugly cover.
And I like the Marvel movies. I'm not an elitist. There's always something good I get out of them. I don't get deep into the weeds on some of that stuff. The second movie didn't resonate with people as much, and that drove the price down a little bit. I liked it for what it was. But I have the book because I wanted to have the first appearance of every kind of major Marvel key player. Yeah, so I've been nice presenting like 3.5, but I've had them and sold them, and the prices go up and down. So now's the time if you want to get one. Now you kind of get it, and you can almost you could offer someone 20% less from what they have it sold for, and probably meet there in the middle somewhere.
So Aaron says, and he leads right. You led right into this next was a question, but it's a statement. I said, I think there may be some good buying opportunities ahead. The MCU boost isn't there anymore, and if the economy dips in the next 12 to 24 months, comics will be one of the first things people sell. So yes and no, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this because it's all it is an opinion. But back in 2020, 2021, there weren't just comic collectors like us. There was everybody and their mother getting into this, which was driving prices insane. So they're all gone now. I don't think there's one left to be found anymore. So have we bottomed? I'm not saying we're bottom, but I think a lot of books have bottomed. So I think especially a lot of the Silver Age Marvel keys now is a great time if you're going to hold on to them for a long time and you don't have to like sell within the next couple of years. Like all of them have been crushing. Now you're starting to see AF-15, a little bit more AF-15 starting to pop up now. But what I've noticed is that they're all selling, that they're not sitting anymore like they were just a few months ago. So I think now's a good time to buy if you're going to hold. But if you hear there's any inkling out there that you may have to sell within the next couple of years, then maybe you want to hold off.
Yeah, I think that if there are books that you've been waiting to get, now's the time to start putting some dry powder away and working out that payment plan and getting the book now, locking in your price. They may go down, but we're talking about, I think, these silver keys. I think they're hovering within 10% of the bottom to the top, what have you. Things like the Jurdovic variant cover, that was $40,000 for Ultimate Apollo 4. There's 16 grand now. You took a beating. So if you really want that book, I'd have to even start wondering if it's worth 16 grand, because where could it go somewhere worse? I don't know. I don't have it. I don't necessarily desire it, but I see people buying it and selling it now, trading it for about a third of what it was. The same's true for a lot of the kind of the modern ones that people were getting in as speculators, like day traders. We've all done it and made mistakes on it, and they're stuck with it. So I just get the one that you want and just wait till you get your bet price, because they're out there. So this is the first Grail that I traded everything for, and it's the Captain America #1.
Wow.
It's actually an 8.5 restored. I live in Dallas, so I had CGC put one of their new labels on it and reslabbed it for me. And you may start seeing it one of these days on their webpage or something like that. This book, to me, outside of my character love for the guys that I was into as a kid, as more of an adult, not only do I like Captain America and I love Jack Kirby, and I had I think one of my favorite Captain America covers was Captain America 100. I remember getting that from a kid, and I think I paid $8 for it. This is back in when I was in middle school, and I've always loved that cover. So that's a book that I'm always going to have somewhere. But uh, I just, as a guy who grew up, family, Jewish family or whatever, I always liked Hitler getting his ass kicked, right? And I always find it comical that it's like Jack Kirby has that saying, is like, it was a very simple equation. If a guy liked Hitler, I'd kick his ass. That's about, if you're one of those dudes that like waving a swastika, I hope you get your ass kicked, because that's just the way it is. So I love this cover. I have a piece of original art that when Neil Adams was still alive, that he actually drew for me. And I'll take the camera over that so you can see it. That's one of my favorite things that I have, where it's him, Captain America, punching the red.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And I wish I can tell you that's a great. I paid $2,500 for that. And
all right, so
that's
get finished, but I want to tell you something too. Go ahead.
That's as good a piece as I own as you can have, and it's just badass. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That is awesome. Oh my God.
It's
so
one of a kind. Yeah.
The Captain America one, is it restored?
It is restored. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. It's tough to tell with the CBCS, the blue label. I wanted to make sure, because if that wasn't restored, that's like over $1 million. That's why I was asking.
It's too long. I mean, that's too. I mean, it's crazy. No, it's restored. It was still very expensive, but I traded about a third of my collection and sold for it. I mean, I had to put up maybe 20% cash that I was able to save. Everything else was from books that I had, or I sold a watch, I sold posters, whatever I could get money for.
Let me ask you a question about the CBCS. So you live in Texas. That's where they're located. Would you just drop it off?
I go there physically. I drop them off. I hand them to them. I do it on. I've had dropped off for other people that have mailed me their books. I've taken them over there. I know people have their opinions about it. That's totally fine. I like the new labels with the books in them. I think they look very good.
So
They're the only company that authenticates or verifies signatures, what I think is a very important niche to fill. I find their grading for me to be very consistent, if not a little strict, but I'm okay with that, because if it's for my collection, I will pay. If people want to sell me their CBC stuff at a premium, I will, at a loss, because whatever, I will take it for less than CGC, because I have no issues with them. And for me, I just want the book, so I don't get all hung up on that stuff. And by dropping them off, I go there and I pick them up, and there's no chance of a lost book, anything. It all works out.
So I may actually require services, because actually I was texting with CBCS, because two of my books, my big books, are CBCS books, and I wanted to get them with the new label and recased. So they said they would do it. I even asked them, hey, would you take a video or like send me some picture of them do it? And they're like, yes, because the books are big. They're like, yes, absolutely, we'll do something for you. My issue is the freaking me just mailing the books and then mailing the books back to me. The insurance is ridiculous and the shipping charge is ridiculous. So
send them to me.
I need to.
I'll take them over there and I'll mail them back to you. Now, for anyone else that's selling comics, by the way, or has a collection, this is just I would insure your collection through a collectibles insurance. I use CIS, a collectible insurance company. For full value, I take a 20% of it. I pay as a dealer, so that anything I buy from someone or sell to someone, it's covered throughout the whole process of shipping it. And that way, if anyone sold me a book and it got damaged and they say, well, sorry, I'm like, oh, hell no, that's on you. I mean, it's on you until it gets to me unblemished. Then it's on me. So that's one of those other things we talked about, where do your ethics lie and that kind of stuff.
I actually have collectible insurance services as well. So
yeah,
there you go.
They're a great company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one, and then I want to ask you a question about the,
so like you, this is a chance to own something that I only seen as a kid. It's a restored 7.0, presents great. It's what can you say? I mean, it's holding a piece of history in your hand. I mean, it's older than, it's pre-World War II. I mean, this is 83 years. So again, sold another fifth of my collection and got into this, and I paid some stuff off over time. Again, take advantage of people offering you to pay over time because you're not paying interest like you would on a credit card. Just make your payments, communicate with them well. If you think you're going to go along and say, look, as long as you're open and communicate, people I've found are very, very, very forgiving, and they don't want to screw you. And buy the buyer, right? Don't buy from some rando.
Absolutely. So I have to ask about that Captain America Hitler original art. Did you buy that off of Elite when they did the sale with Neil?
So Neil, yeah, back years ago when they first
Yes.
did their first one, he had it. He had that, and it was a pen and ink. I bought it immediately, and then I called him and said, "Hey, how much to color it, and can you put swastika armbands on the Red Skull? Because he's a Nazi. Before he was Hydra, he was Nazi." And Neil's like, "Yeah," they're like, "No problem." So I got it for like 1,800. They charged me another 700 to color it. It is so cool.
That's
It's
unbelievable.
one of the favorite things. I have a Neil Adams cover. I like this more than the cover, and I think I'll sell my cover at some point. This I like more. Yeah.
So just goes to show you how like you and I are like-minded. On the same probably Elite Comics 11 sale, I picked up a Neil Adams Jack Kirby style Hulk original art. So I still have that. You can't see it. It's all the way up here and behind whatever, but that is one of my favorite pieces ever. Yes, you have the color, and mine is black and white, but it's a different pose. But yes,
Isn't that awesome?
it's unbelievable.
The
It's one of
dude.
my favorite things.
Oh yeah, the crackle. The guy was a savant. I mean, really, he was. I mean,
He really was.
he just could. It was like a mimic. I mean, he could draw like anyone. It was unbelievable.
He was unbelievable. I'll say so. We have a few new questions. I'm gonna let you handle this one first. It says, if you could only take one book to your grave from your collection, which would it be? That's a tough one.
That's a very difficult. I guess. Huh. Probably the Cap one. I guess. I wouldn't want to take it to my grave. I could let my kids have it, and
Yeah.
they have no clue what it's worth. Then they'd be shocked and like, "Oh wow, Dad hooked me up."
Yeah.
Probably Cap one, because that was the first big grill I got. I worked hard to sell. I sold like books for 3 straight days. And Hiram helped me out, and he came up here and made it happen.
So for me, I used to always say it was my AF-15. Oh, that's just crazy. But I'm gonna say now it's my Tech 31 because that book is it's just a
Classic.
ghost. It's a
Yeah.
ghost. You can't even find it. But that book is incredible. So, God, tell us the story on that one.
So this was again. This is where asking questions and asking people to extend you credit, basically. And so I saw this opportunity, and I said, okay, here's what I need. I think this is an auction book, and this is what I need to have to get it. And I talked to Vince at Comic Connect. I said, look, I'm going to bid on this book. And he goes, okay. And whether Vince got me into it for more than I could have got into it, who knows? But because he allowed 3 months of no interest to pay it off, I was able to use those 3 months and sell shit. And that's the calculation I do, because I was like, well, I don't have that money just sitting in my bank, but I have it sitting in just stuff from collecting for forever. I mean, I don't care what it is. I mean, if you look, I've been collecting posters and prints, whatever. That's just what it is. So it gave me time to move stuff, hustle. I equate anything I do work-wise as dollars per time spent. So I knew, okay, let me go work X amount of extra shifts to pick up extra work, blah, 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 and fund it. And that's how I did it.
Amazing. All right. So, next question, because they're good, some good questions tonight, but keep them going, guys. Tiker, who says, what are your thoughts on the newer trends to collecting now? Seems rarity is key. So I'm seeing quite the increase in prices for things like newsstands, Mark Journalers, white pages, and price variants.
I think you collect what you like. I think a good lesson that I would have liked to have gotten, I may not have listened to it, was focus a little harder on the few things, get those, and then create another collecting goal for yourself. So you always have a goal. You're not kind of random. Let's say you like Mark Jewelers. I I don't have an interest as paying a premium for those, but some people do, and they are more expensive. I don't necessarily have an interest to pay a higher premium for a newsstand book. Some people do, because a lot of times they carry more value. If it's a cover that I like or a character that I like, I would just like to get that one the best that I can. But I found that like this next year, once the new year comes, I'll have and like I had a collecting goal this year, which was to complete the run of all Winners comics. And I finally got the last book in a live sale this last week. So next year I want to make another collecting goal, and it'll be something that's attainable. Maybe it's just a few books. Maybe it's consolidating stuff more to buy, to whatever. But I'll just sit down, and it's always good. Like every 6 months, whether you're at home making your budget with your family, every 6 months go through your budget. So if you're collecting every 6 months, maybe just write your goals down, look at what you have, take stock of it. It's kind of fun to go through your stuff, see what you're married to, what you're not married to, and just get those ready to move on to get the things that you really like.
So I'm going to take a stab at this question a little bit of a different angle. So to me, I always, if you watch my channel all the time, no matter if you're joining me for the first time tonight or you watch me religiously, is like history in comics is a big deal to me. So like that's what I collect, like the history of some of these characters, what they mean to pop culture and to me growing up and to other people growing up, that matters. So when I see stuff like newsstands and Mark Jewelers, um, price variance and white pages are a little bit different. I consider those a little different, but what are you paying exactly up for? Like Eric said, some of these things, they require like an extreme markup. I'm seeing books that are newsstands and Mark Jewelers selling for outrageous numbers right now on Instagram, and they're not selling, they're sitting. So let me add that if you're like-minded and you're looking and collect certain these things, you have to also see who else thinks the way that you think. If you want to collect these things, who else is collecting that way? How easy are these things to sell? Like if you're just buying a newsstand, all right, for the most part, you could find someone buy a newsstand and spend more money. Same thing for the Mark Jewelers, but white pages, we were just talking about before we came on air. He has a buddy who only collects white page books. Price variants are quite rare, so I understand why the markup on certain them, but it's going to go by you. But I always say to people, take into consideration the history and what the books mean, not just the rarity. When I talk about rare, especially, I'm talking about how many copies of a book are available. I don't care about price variance. I don't care about newsstands or Mark Jewelers, because to me, I don't want to say made up rarity, but it's has nothing to do with what's available. Like, yes, okay, Mark Jewelers it's more rare, but what about a Mark Jewelers makes the book special? Just because it has that jewelry insert, to me, that's not a reason I'd buy a book.
When I was a kid, I'd get books that were Mark Jewelers. I get pissed. I'd pull them out. I know it because it was
I do
aggravating.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's to each his own. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not putting down anybody who collects this stuff, but I'd rather spend the money on something that has more of an historical meaning to me, but that's just me.
And for me, like Ultimate Fallout 4, the newsstand versus the non-newsstand is probably a 10 times. Would you think? I think about it for the variant or for the newsstand.
Yeah.
To me, that multiple. If I just want the book in the first appearance, I'm happy with the non-newsstand, and I would take that 10 grand and get something else that maybe resonates a little more. That it's, here's another thing that I have now. It's not like when I'd say high value books, but it goes into the thing like when I grew up as a kid. Now, I watched cartoons, so I've been trying to get all these cartoon books that the first appearance of Peanuts. This is the first appearance of the Jetsons, right? It's not a super valuable book, but it speaks to me and to my time in front of a TV. Space Ghost, I got Popeye, those kinds of things. I'm trying to find Hong Kong Phooey #1. I think there's one on eBay. I just don't know if I want to pay for the price they're asking for on eBay. But that's the other thing. You collect what speaks to you from your childhood or whatever.
And that's, I'll add to that person who asked that question does owning a Mark Jewelers or a newsstand speak to you in a certain way? Does that say, oh my God, I can't believe I have this book that I can't let it go? I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but to each his own. I'm not, that's up to you, but I'd rather own a book that I have an attachment to the character.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we don't have any more questions in the chat, but guys, keep them coming if you have something. I'm going to ask you this. Is there anything out there right now that you're currently looking for?
Yes. All right. So I would like to re-get an AF-15. I'm not in a super big hurry. The book that I really want right now is Captain America #3.
That's the first Stanley story, right?
Right. So, and I was trying to get the entire Captain America run, and I realized that again, I don't necessarily want the whole run. I want 1 through 10. And I want the war covers, and so #3, I think I'm still shy 2 from the first 10. #3 is a very expensive one, and I had an opportunity, but I don't have the cash for it. So I'm going to see if I have some things I can trade for it. So I do want that. I would like to get an All-Star 8 again. I would like to get Hong Kong Phooey #1. And to be honest with you, then I'm gonna take an inventory and see what I want to keep. And I sold a lot of like USA comics and things like with the cool covers and the cap and the World War II stuff. So I may circle back around and try. I'm probably not going to have the opportunity I did to get some of the ones I had again without a huge markup. So I'll just have to reassess and look what I want. You know, I'd like to maybe bump up the grade. One of my favorite, I think it's one of your least favorite covers, but one of my favorite covers is ASM 5.
I like the cover.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's fine.
I want to try and bump up my grade on that. You know, so that's kind of what I'm gonna do. But I've got things that I'm going to work on, and we'll see. I don't have huge goals. I'm going to start looking at runs and genres that I like, and actually find covers that really speak to me, and go find those. Like, I don't necessarily have a desire to get all the Worlds of Fear comics, but the one with the eyeballs over it, that really spoke. I picked that one up before the price just doubled. I got lucky. Same with some of those random horror ones. You know, so it's just like I have that Chamber of Chills 19. It's a 1.5, but it looks good. You know, that's all I need for it, and you know, that kind of thing.
So let me say this. So like members of my channel, I released 2 videos today that were old membership videos. If you guys haven't had a chance to check those out, check them out, because it gives you a little bit of insight on what the members of the channel get, because they know, like, ahead of everybody before I get a book what I'm actually looking to buy. So when I got my Action 12, they knew like 4 months ago. When I got my Batman 121 and a couple other books, they knew like 8 months ago. Whenever the issue was, when I got my Tech 31, they knew beforehand that I was looking for that book. So if you guys are interested, go check that out. So I can't really tell you what I'm looking for, but they don't even know yet. Right now, I'm not sure I'm going to do this, but where do you go when you have like all the books that you think that you want? Do you start looking at like Eric just said, like things that you're like, that your eye gets drawn to, that you're like, wow, that cover's amazing. You know, that's something I could really um, collect and want if I could swing it, stuff like that. For me, I own all the characters that I think I'd want to own. I'm never going to own Action 1 or a Tech 27. It's just not in my price range. So it's never going to happen. But my question is to anybody out there and to everybody in the chat is, where do you go once you have everything that you think you want? Does this hobby ever stop? Do you ever just say, I'm done and that's it? Have you ever had that where like, I can't do this anymore, let me stop for a while? Or
sometimes the enthusiasm wanes a little bit, and because I would argue, and other people would argue, it's the hunt that is probably more exhilarating than the having, whether it's chasing us, you know, a mate, you know, or dating, or getting something like, you know, books or coins or whatever. The hunt is the satisfying thing, and once you have it, then do you have a little emotional letdown? I would say that it's not untrue. I mean, like when Christmas, Hanukkah, when the holidays come, there's this buildup, and then once you've had it, then there's a little lull in your emotion. So that's the time to take stock of what you have. What can you move? And then kind of reinvigorates you, and then also puts money in your pocket. Maybe you do something else. Maybe you buy your spouse that watch, or you get something cool. I don't know, just fill in the blank. And so that's why it's good to do it every now and again, to kind of do a self-assessment.
I think it is also to kind of step back and take a look at what you have and what you want to keep, maybe what's expendable, stuff like that. It really does keep your mind fresh, and maybe puts a little money back in your pocket to see what you want to do next, if you want to do something next.
Like, I wanted to get a pinball machine. All right, I want a James Bond pinball machine, but I don't want to cough up for it. So maybe that's what I want for next year. So I'm going to sell some books until I can afford the Thunderball pinball machine. That's just, it's just, I love James Bond, right? So, or for any people that just comics are sitting around, like these guys at Nerdstalgia, so they make these cabinets. These are great. I mean,
I've seen those.
yeah, these hold slabs. I mean, there's a little slot to stick your slab in. They hold about 25 slabs per drawer. And once you fill up the drawers, and you got to sell one to buy one. And that was, it was like $900. It's a great looking piece of furniture to have in your office, and it organizes your stuff. And you can trade out what you have as the display book, and it's really cool. So you see things like that. So you can use your collection to fund your collection. If you're kind of savvy about it.
All right, so we have another question which I missed, and it actually ties into something that I've been thinking about lately. Where is it? Kenny the Comic Collector says, do you guys collect foreign editions? If so, what are some of your favorites in your PC? So I'm going to start off with this one because it's something that I've been thinking about. Like, I've seen a couple, especially like the Italian Amazing Fantasy 15. Do you know how rare that book is? And it's so cheap. And I love the cover, and it's very different from the original AF-15. I'm looking here because that's where mine is, but they're so rare, and it's something that I'm still attached to. And then it's an Italian version, so it's like, it's not as valuable as obviously the original version, but it's something that I thought about maybe collecting, is trying to get foreign versions of some of the books that I currently own. What about you? Do you have any?
I have a couple. Fantastic Four. Italian. I was born in Naples. Some of the ones they like, the color way is very different and kind of very off-putting, and some of them aren't. Sometimes they combine two for one cover. I do have a Pence version of a couple books. It's not something I necessarily I've been looking for. If something came up and it seemed like a good deal and was kind of cool and it looked cool, I would probably do it. But it's not something I know the Canadian variants are expensive. Some of the Pence variants are affordable, but getting more expensive. It's just not something that gets another rabbit hole, but everyone has their niche that they like, and they get what they want. And that's great. That's cool. I probably I like the Fantastic, there's Thai variant, Filipino variant, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, just again, if it speaks to you somehow, go ahead and get it. Just be understanding that it may not be as liquid as other ones if you have to get rid of it.
That's it. And it all depends on the price you pay. I know my boy Errol loves like certain Canadian variants. He swears by them, that they're worth a ton of money. So here's a great question. I'm gonna let you start with this one, and then I want to break some books out to show this person. But it says, Sport Boom Timmy, what's up, bud? What's up, all? I'm new to collecting and in the market for a Stanley signature series. Prices are crazy. Researching prices, changes, and grades. I'm feeling a backlash, though, in regards to Stanley Auto on books. So what are your thoughts on autos on books?
I have a couple Stanley books. I have a bunch of Neil Adams books. I have one Jack Kirby book, and I have Alex Schomburg on the cover of All Winners. I like good-looking Stanley signatures. If it's a really cool cover and you want a signature book, I see no problem with it. I think some of even the keys, I think they're cool. I think the prices have come down. He did sign millions of books, but who cares? Some of the signatures look better than others, so get the best looking one in a good spot. And who cares what people think? Backlash, whatever. Maybe now's the time to make your offer. I've sold Stanley books. I have a set. Remember those Marvel Origins books, and they're like a thick paperback.
Yeah.
So I have the Marvel Origins of superheroes. Now, one was super villains, one was Marvel female characters. There are 4 volumes. I bought a set that was Stanley's signature in every single one of them, and they're perfect signatures. They're on the inside. The guy who got them from him personally at a convention like in the 80s. I put one up for sale at what I think it should be selling at, and I didn't get a single sniff. But it's not on the cover, and people want to see it. So get I have no problem. On my wall over here, I'll walk you over. So I have this Stanley on this tells us not. I love the cover. Great signature. I got William Shatner on a Star Trek one, and Neil Adams on that Batman. So I got nothing. I got no problem with it. Just wait and find the best price on the cover that you really like. Don't just get it just because it has his name. Get the cover that you like, because guaranteed there's a cover out there that if it's Marvel, he's signed it for somebody.
I agree, and I'm going to show you some stuff. So like I love getting important signatures on artists or creators that I find to be influential to who I am. So my AF-15 is signed by Stan Lee.
That makes that book really expensive. It's fact.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that it's signed in silver, it's a good placement. It's a yellow label. My Incredible Hulk 1, it's a 1/5, but it presents nice, signed by Stan Lee. Again, not the greatest spot for it, but I have an ASM 50, which, as you guys know, just on the Hot 10, my one of my favorite books of all time, signed by Stan Lee and John Romita. I have a FF5, first appearance of Doctor Doom, signed by Stan Lee. I have my favorite cover of all time, ASM 39, which is, Spider-Man, Green Goblin Unmasked Spider-Man, signed by John Romita and Stan Lee, and I got it for a ridiculously cheap price. Those books mean something to me, and to have those creators, who's my favorite artist, you guys know John Romita Sr., and then Stan Lee to sign those books, I cannot tell you how happy I am to have those books. I love Stan's signature on these books. Same with John. I have a Todd McFarlane signed ASM 300, stuff like that. The one thing I'm going to mention to you is this: don't just get Stan Lee's signature on a non-key book, because I don't think that you'll be happy in the end. You don't have to get an AF-15, but buy something that's either a classic cover, like he showed you that Tales to Astonish book. That's a Marie Severin cover, a classic cover.
Get them on priced. Yeah.
First appearance book. It doesn't, like I said, my ASM 39 is my favorite cover. Classic cover by John Romita. It's his first artwork on Spider-Man. So to me, having his signature on that, dude, I bought that book with Stan Lee's signature and Romita's signature for $550. I maybe it's a lot of money to you, but to me, like, just for Stan's sake, could be like $500 on nothing. So I mean,
I had an ASM 50 with Lee and Romita. It was a 5.0, and I ended up selling it because it was one of the ones I had to let go of. But it is what it is. But this one right here, so this is an all winners. Now this was signed by Alex Schomburg. It says on the CGC label, written in pen, Alex Schomburg on the cover. So they didn't verify it. So I took it to CBCS. I said, "Can you verify the signature?" And they said, "Well, if we crack it, they're going to get it. It's going to get regraded because it's not a CBCS book."
Yeah.
But what they'll do is they will verify the signature and give you the authentication paperwork, which they did. So I kept the grade, kept the book. It's an authentic signature. There are 0 anywhere on the census. That's the only one. And he is an artist from the 40s, 50s, I mean, even into the 70s, who, some people don't like him. Maybe it's too busy or whatever. His war covers are so full of action and this and that. He is a classic. Put him in covers with Kirby at the time, Schomburg, and these guys. So I'm very fortunate to have that book.
That's unbelievable. If you don't know who Alex Schomburg is, he is if you're going to buy a war book, if you're going to buy a Captain America book, in my opinion, from the golden age, it has to be a Schomburg cover. Like for me, if I'm going to buy it, I want a Schomburg cover.
Yeah. Or Sid Shores. I mean, those are great covers, but you know him when you see his stuff. Like, he did all these painted covers, like for Wonder and Starling Comics. Like, he did the famous, that robot cover on Starling but this is like a painted Schomburg cover. So his stuff, and they're just, I love it. And they're, for having a signature on that book, nothing else on the census, 0. So, like I said, very fortunate.
That's crazy. I don't even think I've ever seen a Schomburg signature. That's like, who else was I saying the other day? Like Joe Simon, even Jack Kirby's signature is so rare on some of that golden age stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and he didn't ever sign the cover hardly. So I have a Stuntman #1 from the 40s. That was a Kirby creation, Kirby book that Kirby is signed in the inside. I got it verified at CBCS. So now I have a yellow label verified Kirby signature.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's something I don't have that I would love, because I'm a huge Jack Kirby guy as well. But if there's just they're just impossible, and I would also want it on a specific book, which is even more impossible. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I
all
think I
right,
have one
so
other. It's on Fantastic Four Annual with #2, as I have a Kirby signature on.
it's just some of the stuff, like when we talked about Rare before, someone brought up the thing of Rare, and they brought up newsstands and I'm losing my mind. Mark Jurler's interest, stuff like that's, to me, is more rare, like the stuff like that. And yes, I understand it's more expensive, but I'm seeing like Mark Jurler sell for thousands of dollars on certain books, on Bronze Age books, whereas you can go out and probably get some of these other books that are really rare for around the same price or maybe a little bit more.
You talked about things that I would like to get. I do have some. I do have one thing that I forgot. I would sell 100 Silver Age non-keys, at $50 a piece, or 1,000 of those, to get a piece of Kirby original art, published art. I don't. It does. I mean, a cover I could never afford. Just one page with a cool, a Fantastic Four, a Captain America, or one hero that is not just random people in
What's
the
that?
street.
What's that going to run though? I would think a page is run like six figures. I don't know.
No, I think you can find one for 20 grand probably. You just have to be, again, you have to be patient and kind of lucky. Um, I don't know. I know, I'm honest with you. I don't know what it run. It starts, but they're up there. I just would love to have one day. So
I, I,
I'm not there, but I would love to have one.
I agree. I would like to have a page out of Amazing Spider-Man done by Ramita Senior, but I don't think I can afford that.
The
But
thing is, when I was a kid, I would go to the flea market in San Antonio, and there were people. I remember this, early '70s, guys that were there selling comics, and they were selling pages and pages and pages of original art, like $10, $15. I mean, these are all in the Bristol board stuff. I mean, I remember John Byrne and Buscema and all these guys from the '70s. I was like, man, I was like, I don't want that. I want this comic book. Holy shit! What I wouldn't give to go back and just buy stacks of that stuff, because that really has gone crazy.
Oh, it's insanity. I always bring up this story, not last year, but not this year, but the year before. I saw ASM 55, that classic Doc Ock with the glasses
Giant
on
glass.
the cover.
Yeah.
It's like 300 grand for the original art cover. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Like Neil Adams, the Batman 251 was sold for 650 or whatever. I think if it would have waited a year, it would have sold for more. Um, I got a cover from one of his live sales, and it took me about I paid off in drips and drabs, but they let you pay off with no interest. It was about 12 grand, and I literally took me about 16 months to pay off. $100 here, $100 there. But they were so cool about it, and I think it's probably worth 3 times that. I mean, it's a cover, it's a published cover.
Absolutely. It's one of a kind too. I mean,
It's one of a kind, yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the chat and ask you guys, anyone out there who's still watching now. We got 30 people in here. Is there a book right now that you've just acquired or you're looking to acquire right now? Because, I don't see any more questions in the chat, and to keep this going for a little bit longer. We've been on for like an hour and 15 minutes. So Eric, you let me know when you have to go. I usually end
Yeah,
this thing with like an hour and a half.
let's do it. Let's go to the hour and a half. Then I get people page me wanting me to look at CT scans or what have you.
Yeah, whenever you got to jump off, it's no issue. But I figured, like I got nothing going on, so whatever you got to do, you got
This
to
is
do.
one of my favorite covers right here. This Batman, the chokehold, the teeth on Dr. Death, the hypodermic needle. I mean, that's just a bananas cover right there.
What issue is that again?
Detective 35.
35.
Yeah, that's just a cool cover. I know. You can say what you want about Bob Kane. I mean, but that's a cool cover. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like anything, early detective, that's still pre-Robin at that point, is just, they're so hard to come by. It's just, it's crazy, and they're.
Well, this came out in January of 1940. Batman #1 was spring of 1940, so it predates it.
Yeah.
So Batman it was probably, what is this, like his 4th appearance maybe in Detective. Let's see what it says. This is the cover where they just start doing Batman from there on out. So it's 27 and 31. Those are great books.
Yeah, Vinny says he's looking for Bernie Wrightson signed Frankenstein portfolio. That's probably crazy.
Someone was just selling that, and they were selling that was a lithograph. I don't think it was signed by Wright. Now I had a Bernie Wrightson signed Swamp Thing #1, but I sold it.
That's another book that's really hot. House of Secrets and Swamp Thing, like that's been on and off. People every time I see that book on a live sale, people are asking about it. They're buying it. So I mean, DC. What do you think about the whole DC thing now that James Gunn is over there? Do you see like books jumping in values? Some of the DC books have went up early, and now I don't really hear from them anymore. Do you think that those movies are gonna push those books higher, or are they just gonna stay flat? And I'm not talking about the Golden Age stuff because that's in its own realm.
I don't know. It's just weird. I mean, again, I'm not like a comic movie snob. I loved Wonder Woman. I thought that first one. The second one was like my kids were like my daughter's like, where's the fighting? And they're like, what happened? What happened? Aquaman had some. It was funny, but it's weird. It seems like the CGI was never as good. I like this Snyder version of Justice League. I mean, it was long. I enjoyed it a lot. The but for some reason it's not really the movies aren't resonating. I'm interested to see if they with Gunn how they do. So the Flash movie, I saw that. I thought it was okay. And again, there's a very few stinkers. There's some stinkers, but there were things I liked about it. But the books, unless it was what I never saw it translate to any kind of meaningful price increase. The Suicide Squad, the Brave and the Bold, that kind of goes up a little bit. The Golden Age Grails, they're going to maintain even irrespective of the movies. I think the other ones it's going to fluctuate. So if you like it, I would get it when it's low and not buy it at the when it comes out or the high. It's just because they'll come back down. It is what it is. But I never had more trouble selling Showcase 4. That's a book I had trouble selling. I have there's some of those DC books like it's just like the House of Secrets. That's a book that never varies more than a couple hundred one way or the other. That book holds its value. You just got to buy on that little dip, and if you're going to sell on a little up dip. But it pretty much wiggles. It kind of wiggles up. But Swamp Thing can go up and down. Swamp Thing one. So get the first appearance, get the best one you can afford if you like it, and just hold it. But I found like the Showcase ones and the Brave and the Bulls and things like that are more the bronze. Another book that actually is funny, I find it really hasn't really deflated is that Batman 251. I think that's a great book, and
The
I never
251 and the 227, they really haven't gone down at all.
Yeah, they stayed pretty. I'm gonna walk with you here until my dog is ringing the bell. Like I don't want it to whiz on my floor, but those have held pretty well. And it's like if I see a Batman 251, I tend to always make an offer on it because that's one of my favorite books. So there are times when I might have had 10 of them, and then then I sell them at a loss or something like that. Go on, Frieda. But I do like that book, and it's a great cover.
The one thing about the House of Secrets book is not only is it a first appearance, but it's a classic cover, so it's a double whammy. So like,
yeah,
I don't. It's another reason why I don't think the book goes down. It's a popular book, but as we're talking about DC, like back in 2020 and even before that, like when Marvel was pushing books, I never thought it was the fact that because the movies were pushing books. I thought the movies brought people in that never really collected comics. But what I'll say now that Marvel doesn't have is like they used all of their best characters for the Infinity.
They banged them out all at once, yeah.
And that's it. Like those are the characters that people were familiar with that aren't really into comics. And that's what brought everybody into the comic space in 2019, 2020, 2018. Now that those characters are gone for the most part, that's why all those people have left. I'm not really saying it's because the movies are bad or because the shows are bad. It's more that the fact that those great characters are no longer part of the MCU.
Everyone knew Captain America. No one knew Monica Rambeau unless you're a comic nerd. So They had to try. They did a smart thing is try and trickle them in so that you knew. I don't know how they managed to plan 10 years of movies because when you look back in retrospect, if you watch one through, you start at the beginning. I've done this with my kids now a couple of times. I'm like, how do they know that this is where this was going to go? I mean, go from here to Ultron to this, and then refer back 10 years later.
Yeah.
It was an amazing achievement, and they're still trickling characters. Like I love Shang-Chi. Um, I
I like that
enjoyed,
movie too.
yeah, like they kind of introduced the character in the second Doctor Strange. It's kind of a bridge movie to bring some other characters in to give you a little taste of them. Um, and we'll see what sticks. Now, I think some of the stuff is better for a multi episode Netflix movie, or I'm talking
Yeah.
for the Disney series. I think that's a great idea. I personally have never had any beef with it. I liked She-Hulk. I really enjoyed Werewolf by Night. I like Loki. I like WandaVision. I'm pretty easy. But I like the Secret War, the Skrull one. I like that, and Secret Invasion. I enjoyed them. And people, you watch the first one, oh, they did this. Well, you just wait till the end. They showed you why they did that,
Yeah.
and they didn't really screw up the characters. That was part of the story. So you just gotta wait, and we'll see what they come up with. But yes, the people that they're trying to, unless you were the nerd that knew them, hopefully they just gave you a little taste and wet your beak for your kids to want to go see when that person gets put out on the big screen later.
Yeah. So like I said, Marvel going forward, it's not going to push books. I actually like Robin Pattinson's Batman movie. I thought the movie was
Oh, I
actually
enjoyed that
excellent.
too. Yeah, I
I thought
loved
that
it.
was excellent. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be part of the DC storyline, but we'll see where he goes. Obviously, the Supermans and the Batmans and the Wonder Womans, those three characters, they're always going to be entrenched in whatever goes on in DC. So those books will always be, sustained. There are not many, Silver Age or higher Superman books that are worth much. There are not really any Batman books from Silver Age on. There's a few. There's 121 and 181 are true first
Yeah.
appearances. Then you have the first Silver Age appearances, and that's
First
it.
Red Hood, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's right. It's another big one there, Red Hood.
But you're
But
right. The big characters didn't come in the 60s and 70s. They came in the
yeah,
40s, which makes it even harder to obtain. It's funny. I'll say this about the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. His being a great actor aside, that movie did not resonate with me at all because it was too real and kind of too sad and sick. Whereas I'll take Heath Ledger's Cesar
uh,
Romero for that case, and Jack Nicholson. I mean, Jack Nicholson came out. I was a junior in college. I had Batman shit out of my ears, Batman biking hats. I mean, everything was Batman. That's when I sold part of my collection to pay off some debt that I was in, and I was getting 90 cents on the dollar for all my Batman stuff. Uh, that Joker movie, I hope they don't. They're going down another road where they're going to take it down, which is not okay. That's fine, but that one didn't resonate with me. But I'm not saying I didn't like it. It was just almost like a little too real, if you know what I mean.
it's hard to relate that story to the actual Joker that we know in
Yes.
comics. That's what the difference is, in my opinion. You're right. I thought the Heath Ledger Joker was phenomenal. When that movie came out and the trailer hit, I was like, holy shit, like this is gonna be unbelievable. And it was.
The movies that came out that transcended the genre, I know because my wife liked them, was the first Batman with Christian Bale. That to me was a high watermark. The first Iron Man, she could give a shit about Iron Man. She loved that movie because one,
Yep.
Downey was so good. Number two, the stop action and everything felt real. It didn't feel fake, like CGI fake. It felt real and sounded real. And Favreau, the guy must be a savant. I mean, he did such a great job with it. And and Wonder Woman, because it was a great movie. It was female centric. My daughters could get into it, and we ended up as a family, me and three women, basically, or two girls and one woman, watched the entire MCU. I mean, everything. So they sat through every movie because Iron Man was so good. That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah. So we're gonna take Eric's gonna take one more question. I'm gonna let him go because he's a busy man, and I'll probably stay on for another 10, 15 minutes just to address anything else. But here's the last one for you, Eric, then I'll let you go. Ready? So Jose says he bought a comic on Whatnot that ended up being restored. He said his presser let him know. Is it on me for not asking about restoration, or should sellers be upfront about restoration?
Again, it goes back to the ethics. If you're a seller, you're representing it and you don't say it's restored, you're representing it as unrestored. If it comes back restored, I would reach out to the seller, and if they're a quality seller, they'll take the book back from you or they'll pay you whatever. I would just send the book back. Be just again when you're at conventions, when you're buying from dealers and they're buying raw books, I can't pick resto out. Some I can pick out. If they won't stand by their books, don't buy from them, because there are people that will stand by their books. And learn to spot tear seals, and color touch or whatever. But some of it you just can't see. You have to go into the book. I mean, there might be a married page in there. It's hard. So buy the buyer, and if they're an ethical seller, they should. That's my opinion. They'll take care of you.
Yes, well said. The one thing I'll give you a story.
It's okay to ask. Is
Yeah.
there a restaurant that if they say I don't know, pass.
Yeah. I'll give you a story. I bought a book off of Instagram from somebody a long time ago, and I messaged the guy after the fact when I thought the book was trimmed, and he said, no, the book is not. He wouldn't take it back, blah, blah, blah. There's so much you could do. The guy wouldn't take it back. I unfollowed him, and it's a big seller on Instagram. I don't want to give their name out, but I unfollowed them, and that was it. I will never buy them from them again, and that's basically what you have to do.
Everyone makes a mistake and gets beat. You just don't want to be a costly one. I bought a book. I had been drinking. Everyone's asleep. I was on an Instagram sale. I didn't know the sellers. It was an autographed book, and it turns out they couldn't verify the signatures. Lesson for me. And I could never figure out again whom I bought it from. I went back through PayPal. I never could track them down. So everyone will get beat. Just don't make the beat a killer, and learn from other people's mistakes. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. All right, bud. Thank you for coming on with me tonight. I really appreciate it. It was a good time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. If anyone who's watching wants to reach out to me or follow me, I post random books and just fun stuff. And like I said, every 3 months or so, I'll do a sale. And it's typically me, and Hiram helps me out. And just for fun, it's like I'm not trying to make a killing on books. I sell a lot of them at a loss and give you the chance of getting a book that you want. If you have questions, you want to reach out, whatever. If you're in Dallas, give me a shout. Like I said, I'm here to help, and I've met nice people. I don't think it's been a positive experience doing this on Instagram, and like your show, you do a good job on YouTube. And at some point I might ask you, what did it take to set up your own YouTube channel? I don't necessarily want to do it in the comic realm, but I have other ideas and things that you like. So buy what you like, and don't spend your rent money, and just enjoy it. I don't blast. I've been screwed. I don't go on Instagram and blast people. That's not my cup of tea. I just move on. People ask me off the record, I'll tell them, but there's no saying. I got better things to do at 55 than to be in a pissing match on Instagram with somebody.
I agree with you, man. Again, I really appreciate you coming on. This is a great time. And again, if you're not following him on Instagram, or you're not on Instagram, do yourself a favor, get on Instagram, because there's so many.
It's awesome. Yeah.
All right, bud. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great Thanksgiving as well.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Take care.
Take care. All right, guys. It's just me then for probably a little bit. So I'm going to answer whatever questions you have left. I'm going to address whatever comments are out there. Thank you to Eric for coming on the YouTube channel tonight and just talking comics for an hour and a half. He's got great insight. Like I said, we've come from almost a similar way of collecting. We've collected a lot of the same way. We've gone through the stages, because that's the most important thing, in my opinion. You're going to get to a point where you want to do something else. You're going to get to a point where you want to collect something else, and that's fine. It's just about going from one spot to the next spot to the next spot. There are collectors out there who just stay in one spot, and that's fine too. I'm not saying that. It's just eventually you get bored of what you're doing and you want to do something else. So if you ever have questions, you could always reach me on Instagram, mightycomics_collectibles. I'm sure Eric would do the same, Yakuza Doc. And that's it. Like I said, we're all in this together, and I'm always here to answer questions. You know how many emails and Instagram messages I get? I do not mind. So I will say that now's the time. If you have any last questions, bring it on. If you're looking for a book, if you're looking for something, if you want to know a price, if you think something's a good deal, I will be here to answer whatever you have. If not, then I will let you go, and I will tell you all happy Thanksgiving, because thank God I have to go back to work on Friday, unfortunately. But I am off tomorrow, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I am in healthcare. You'd have to ask Eric what he does for a living. I'm not sure. Your boy Bruce Wayne, what's going on, my friend? Just made a comic book cover for a Spider-Man series I want to make called Spider-Man: The Symbiotic Relationship. Very good, man. Send it over to me. Let me see it. If you're on Instagram, message it to me. I'd love to see that, bud. Appreciate it. Send it in to somebody. Let's see if we can get it on a, even though the problem is Spider-Man, you're not going to be able to get that written. You'd have to be approved by Marvel, but hey, that's cool, man. I'm sure you're quite the artist as well. That's really awesome. Kenny says, do you have any books in your collection that may not have a lot of value that is just priceless to you? So I'm going to say yes. If you're new to my channel, I'm doing an ASM run 1 to 301. So there's a lot of books in that run that I absolutely love that are not worth anything. For me to complete a run, and I'm literally, you're the first person to hear this right now, first people to hear this right now. I am one book away from completing that run. One book, and I'm done with ASM 1 to 301. So a lot of those books, they're not keys. So I try to pick up the books that are not keys for good deals. Like I went to New York Comic Con and I got like 40 plus books for like $5 to $8 each for ASM keys from the Bronze Age and higher. So there are still good books out there. Like all those books mean something to me because they're books that I read growing up. Now I wish I had kept my original run so I didn't have to go out and buy all this shit again. But yes, FF number 12. Now it's not worth a ton of money, but it is worth money. I love that cover by Jack Kirby. To me, in my opinion, that's one of his best covers of all time. It's just classic. And so, yes, it's not worth a ton of money and it's not. So again, I went to New York Comic Con this year and I got the Sneakerhead exclusive comic from Depressible Defects and Ryan Brown. Uh, exclusive 1 of 1. I actually ended up getting 2 of them. Those books mean a lot to me because it says something about me as a collector. I'm looking on my wall up here because that's where a lot of my big ASM Raw books are. I have original art that means a lot to me. I had a buddy in this community who did some original art for me, which I think is priceless. You could go on my Instagram or you can go on some of the YouTube videos. I've shown them before. I've actually just shown all of them actually on the Q&A that I just did. Brandon Meshew, thank you so much, bro. And thank you for the membership, man. You won't regret it. Trust me. Boy said, I'm cheering for Instagram. It was a photo editing app. Okay. Well, listen, if you want to snapshot it to me, my email is in the description of every video. If not, that's cool too. Totally get it. If you have an email address, you can always send it over. Oh, dude. Happy early birthday. I have an 11-year-old. So he's not too far behind you. He likes to draw as well. But that's either way, that's pretty cool, man. When I was your age, I did a lot of drawing as well. I wish I still had some of it because I had a Spawn drawing that I loved. I had Incredible Hulk. There was an issue number, and I forget the issue, but it was a purple background. It was just the gray Hulk, his head, and he's like screaming. I recreated that cover, and I was a decent artist when I was a kid. Unfortunately, now I'm not too good anymore. But hey, Firefly, what's up, brother? I'm looking at getting my first big book, either a TOS 39 or X-Men 1. They are about the same cost and grade in the lower grades I'm considering. What's the best upside in your opinion? Well, I wouldn't worry about upside right now. Both books are totally fine. The fact that the X-Men haven't shown up, if they do a good job, you may get a bump, you may not. Both books I want to own. There's zero question about that. Whether one is better than the other, I can't tell you. What's the book that you'd rather have? Are you a bigger Iron Man fan or are you a bigger X-Men fan? That's the answer here. It's not about value because they're both valuable books. I think if Robert Downey Jr. comes back, people will, get nostalgia and they'll start looking for that book again. But they're both solid books to own forever, right? They're both long-term investment books. You cannot go wrong, in my opinion. Buy the book that you want. What's a Discord server? But I've heard Discord before, but I'm not really sure what it is. I got to do some research on that stuff. Kingdom Comics, what's going on? Since modern as a category has been around for almost 40 years, do you think it's time to visit a name? Do you think it's time to visit a name after Copper? So yes, I do think there has been talk about naming something after the Copper Age and splitting it to something else, and then modern, or doing modern and then calling with the newer comics something else. I do remember some talk about this. There was a name for it. I don't remember the name that was floated around, but it hasn't been decided on as of yet, or at least it hasn't stuck on as of yet. But yes, I do agree that there should call it something else. And that's why, for the most part, that I stopped collecting books that are 90s and on, because one, the 90s books, we all know they were printed to death. So for me to go out and buy those books, there's only, excuse me, a few that I want, like New Mutants 98, because I have a little bit of attachment to Deadpool. And there might be one other. Copper, of course, is ASM 300 as well. Like that's a book I own. I don't need to buy another copy. A lot of them out there, but outside of those two books, like I'm not going to go out and get a TMNT one. That's a Copper Age book. It's just too expensive for me to buy that book. I like TMNT, but I don't want to spend the money on that book. But outside of that, I do think they should rename them. Yes, it's been a long time. I always say once they change the paper, that's when they have to change the name. So I think the Copper Age, you still had some of the old paper, but then once it's just over to the new paper, that's when it denotes a new name, in my opinion. Some of my books that I had when I was a kid still have them, but they beat up. I really enjoy having them now in amazing condition. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, I don't have any of my books for the most part that I had when I was a kid. I sold them off when I was in college, but other than that, um, what before I sold them off, I would frequently go through the boxes and look at some of the books. It's one of the greater joys that I have had. Very enjoyable show. Hope you all have enjoyable Thanksgiving. Thank you, Kenny. I really appreciate it tonight, but thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Thanksgiving is all good when you're not the turkey. Damn right, baby. Can't wait for that turkey tomorrow. Ah, there's always one. And I'm sure, pretty sure my wife would say yes. Let alone me emailing people. Maybe I could send it to my school computer and send it to you. Yeah, listen, if you want, that's cool. Whatever you want to do, but I'm just trying to. Anytime you create something, whether you're 13 or you're 100, it's you. So if you're willing to share it, I'm all about hearing it. So that's all good. All right, guys. I'm gonna give another couple minutes for questions, then we're gonna end the stream. Again, I really appreciate you all for hanging out tonight. This was fun. This is one of the better live streams we've done. Thank you to Eric again for coming on with us. He's a new guest to the channel, so hopefully we'll have him on again, get more of his insights, and we'll go from there. More people out there. If you're watching this on the rewind and you watch my channel religiously, come on the channel with me. Even if you don't have a YouTube channel, I send you the link. Especially if we've talked before. Like, come on, just let's have a common conversation. It doesn't need to be polished. When we do live streams, it doesn't need to be polished. Let's come on and just talk like it's nothing, right? Like that's what this is about. There you go. Bring Errol back on for some advice for 2024 books. You mean books that like we're looking for in 2024? Is that what you mean, Kali? If that's what you mean, I actually invited him on here tonight, but you got to remember he's in Australia, so getting him on is tough sometimes. But yes, Errol, if you're watching this shit, you heard him or her, come on the show. They want you back. They're calling for more Errol. Come on. But this time, bro, you got to come in. You got to rip off the shirt when you come in. You got to flex. You got to do all that stuff. And then you got to give us your picks for 2024. Okay? So go on and give us your picks for 2024. Now, I can tell you right off the bat, knowing Errol, he's into Golden Age. He's into Superman. So a lot of those books are going to be Golden Age Superman books, Golden Age Batman books. A lot of those books are going to be Golden Age books. However, some of the silver, I know he's staying away from that right now where he is in his comic collecting journey, because when you get to a certain point, he's got a Superman one. He doesn't want to look back. He doesn't want to go back and buy some of the books he's already had. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's probably had like 7 AF-15s at one time. Like he's had 7 copies of that book. Go check him out on Instagram. He'll have pictures of that. It's amazing. But he had the wherewithal to know, like back then, that what AF-15 was going to become. And he turned that into a Superman 1, which is, God bless. So yes, definitely have to have him on though. And him and Jason at Omega Collects will get a 3-way going, and we'll come on and we'll talk about books for 2024. That's actually a good video. Maybe we'll do a separate video on books for 2024 that we think could add back to the collection. So, all right, guys, I'm going to end the stream for tonight. Again, thank you for joining me. It's been an hour and almost 40 minutes. So I'm going to go relax a little bit. But thank you all for checking out the stream tonight. If you're watching this on the rewind, if you haven't hit that sub button, do yourself a favor, hit that sub button. If you haven't hit that membership button, that I told you, for $5 a month, every couple of months, I give you a video where I tell you the books that I'm looking to buy right now. One of them is going to be coming soon. And we're actually going to be doing a members only giveaway. I'm actually thinking about running it this weekend. So if you're a member of the channel, you're going to have access to some original art that will be going out to one lucky member of the channel. So keep that in your mind. So with that said, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.